morning, Polyphony members. It's so good to see your faces here. And to those who are watching this recording later, whether you're a Polyphony member or a person interested in this topic that came up in your search on YouTube, we're glad that you are watching. I am pleased to introduce Charlie Fuller to you today, who is a personal coach, leadership coach, and will be sharing about his work today. Charlie spent almost 30 years as a high school and college music professor, an arts administrator, and minister. So I think he has something to talk about in regards to leadership. It was a career that included master's and doctoral degrees, as well as extensive post-doctoral training in choral performance and in the arts administration. And Charlie served on the boards of several nonprofits and finished that portion of his career as a successful university administrator. Along the way, he has been blessed with over a 40-year marriage to his wife, Cindy, and three wonderful daughters. Charlie, it's so good to have you with us today to share this time. Thank you. I would like to ask you just provide, before you go into your presentation today, to provide a little background for us of how you got into this work, what first drew you to professional coaching, and how did a journey together take shape? Were there particular moments or experiences that convinced you that this was the kind of work you wanted to devote yourself to?
Well, in my life as a professor and as a fine arts dean, people would come to my office. They wanted to talk about stuff, and sometimes it was about music, sometimes it was about their work, but often it was about other stuff. Students and then faculty would come in, and there was something going on here, and I was trying to discern what God was trying to tell me. And I reached 50. It was sort of my midlife crisis. I said, well, I want more of this and less of some of this other stuff. And so I decided to go to seminary. And my objective was to do clinical pastoral education. I didn't know where that was going to lead, but that you have to have some kind of seminary experience in order to do CPE. So I began work at Truett, ended up doing an MDiv, ended up doing a couple of units of CPE. And a friend of mine, as I was finishing my MDiv at Truett, who I had known, back when the Earth's crust was first cooling when we were undergrads, he was doing coaching. And I had learned about coaching a little bit when I was in the academy. It was very popular years ago in business, still is. It was beginning to creep into the academy, the academic world. And I was a typical academic, and I could be pretty cynical about stuff. And it's easy to be cynical about coaching. I've got an example in a presentation, but my friend and I were talking about it, and I realized something was lining up with what I wanted to do, with what I felt I was called to do, which was to have, I hoped, meaningful conversations with people and helping them to discern, God's will for what they needed to do and to explore their own giftedness. And so typically men are much less likely to seek pastoral counseling than women. But my suspicion was that men would be much more open to coaching than the pastoral care. And that has been my experience. And so I had sort of an ulterior motive. I wanted to open up pastoral counseling to a greater number of people. And so as I worked through that and I went through the training back in about 2012, 2013, I've been credentialed now for 10 years. I've done I haven't done exclusive coaching except for a couple years, when I thought I was retired. It's always been, hallway coaching, a little bit of leadership coaching, a little bit on the side, because I've had ministry jobs and my calling ended up being more than just having conversations with people. When I finished seminary, I went to work at Second Baptist Church in Little Rock as minister for congregational life. And so I was doing pastoral care through hospital visitation. Did some administration. I did a lot of different things there. In 2016, I went to Washington, D.C. I became executive pastor at First Baptist Church in D.C. I coached a handful of people, but mostly it was coaching my staff and doing what I call hallway coaching.
Mhm.
And then in 2019, we came back to the Southwest. I was transition pastor at Lakeshore Baptist Church in Waco. The pandemic hit, and everybody needed coaching, and began to do some of this, and everybody became facilitate became good with Zoom, which they weren't before the pandemic, and so I began to have a few coaching clients. After my transition pastor was over, and then some guy named Doug Haney and people at Wilshire called. Doug was retiring, and so I ended up being, you know, drawn back into music ministry for about 9 months, and then toward the end of that time, I was asked to restart the uh, Pathways to Ministry program here at Wilshire Baptist Church, which is a residency program, and so I do a lot of hallway coaching, but my title is also coach in residence here. So right now I coach some denominational people, some ministers across the country, and I coach some Wilshire people as a part of my role here at the church. So that's what I'm doing, and that's really how the calling evolved, and really it all grew out of the last part of my academic career.
Thank you. Um, you've been gracious to prepare a presentation today for us to share about your work. And so I invite you can begin now sharing, Charlie, and then um, I'll have some follow-up questions later. And there may be others here in the room that have questions too later, but we'll let you present to us on this topic.
Okay. Are we good with a blue screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this presentation is a little bit general, so I'll go quickly through a few slides. But this is a little bit of my bona fides, my degrees, and my credential, and what I do now, what I used to do, and my certifications. My DMin project, I have a DMin from BTSR, and what I did was I studied coaching, and I did a study about coaching and ministers, and I did a qualitative survey, and we got narratives from ministers who had experienced coaching, either were currently or had in the past. And then we also had a group of coaches who coached ministers. And so we did those, took those stories and combined them, looked for themes, and the outcome basically was that um, everybody needs a coach. Now, the truth is that you can also have a spiritual director. A part of what is gained is this outside partner who walks alongside you, which is why I call my coaching practice a journey together.
Mhm.
I call it a journey together because journey together was already taken. And so I needed the URL. So anyhow, I did a little bit of, I spent a year as a volunteer oncology chaplain in Little Rock when I first started work at Second Baptist Church. So those are, as part of my bona fides there. Let me tell you what coaching is not.
What's with the helmet?
Oh, well, I got a life coach.
What's that like?
Take the stairs. Say hello. 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 No. 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 No.
You don't need a life coach. Subway makes better choices easy, like the low-fat, sweet onion chicken teriyaki. All white meat, crisp veggies, freshly baked bread, under 400 calories. Subway, eat fresh.
The only thing that's made fun of more in the media than coaching is opera. Everybody on this Zoom understands that. You know, every sitcom at some point makes fun of opera. Coaching, people make fun of coaches too, and I could join in with that, because it takes nothing to say you're a coach. You can put up a shingle, you can create a website and say you're a coach, and you are one. That's why the credentialing process, I think, is really important. All you got to do, say you are one, and you are one. And there are plenty of people out there purporting to be coaches who do not have training, who don't understand the brain science behind coaching, how it works, who just haven't done the work.
Hmm.
I think that's an important caveat for me to explain to you. Another thing I would also say is that coaching, it's not like if any of you were athletes growing up or still are, Athletic coaching is very different from, personal coaching, executive coaching, what I call credentialed coaching. Coaches tend to tell people what to do if you're in athletics. Executive coaching, the kind of coaching we're talking about, that's the very last thing you do is tell somebody what to do. Uh, Coaching is for people who want to, well, let's see, hang on, become more confident and self-reliant. It's for people who want to establish goals. These are some of the things that my clients have discovered through coaching. Follow through on their goals. Accountability is a big piece of coaching. I ask my clients, how are you going to hold yourself accountable for that? How many of you been in a meeting and we're really talented people and you're engaged in the topic and you come up with all these great ideas and you leave the meeting and nothing ever happens? Just raise your hand. Has that ever happened? Okay, it's happened to all of us. As a coach, one of my jobs is to hold a client accountable or help them hold themselves accountable. A client can come up with great ideas, but if they don't follow through on the ideas, the coaching was worthless. Coaching can help people enhance relationships, better handle conflict, gain better professional satisfaction, become more fulfilled in your personal life, think more effectively,
Hmm.
improve their time management. I've coached a lot of people about time management, better balance life and work, boost job performance, increase their effectiveness. So let's think about what are the ways that individuals and groups want to improve their lives. Here are some of the issues my clients have brought to coaching. Should I change careers? Should I take this job? This one has come up a couple of times. I've been abused in my work situation. I need to figure out how to move forward. I'm overwhelmed by my work situation, and I need to figure out how to get everything done. Should I go back to school? How can I plan for my retirement? That's actually become a little bit of a niche for my coaching practice. I think because of my age and people that know me, I've coached a lot of people about retirement. And I do not coach them about the finances. I do not have that credential, nor do I want it. Uh, but there's a lot more than the money to consider when you're trying to decide when and how and what to do after retirement. How can I be more deeply involved at church? How can I salvage this relationship? Should I ask this person to marry me? How can I handle my road rage? Yes, I really did have a client that brought that issue to a coaching session. How do I deal with a difficult work colleague? That's come up more than once. I need to think through my hiring process. This was an executive who was, going to had a position to fill, and he needed someone to bounce some ideas off of and ask him some questions about what is it we were trying to accomplish with this hire.
Hmm.
Should I start my own business? How can I better live out my calling? So all of these issues and topics are things that I've actually coached people with. How can I better interact with my church staff peers? How can I get along with my pastor or my supervisor? What should I do about my marriage? How can I solve this conflict? My life's been a mess since my divorce. How can I get my feet back on the ground? How can I better organize my life? This data is from the International Coach Federation. I'm going to kind of shift through it. This is what you would use, and you might want to use this with your personnel committee to go in when you're doing your budget and say, I need some professional development money for coaching. This is what a coach can help me do and what I can bring to church. And business are really big into ROI, return on investment. So these are some of the things that coaching has been proven to do. 70% had improved work performance. 61% had improved business management. 57% had improved time management, improved team effectiveness. Coaching helps build self-confidence of people and help them to be more positive.
Hmm.
Improve self-confidence, improve relationship, improve communication skills, improve life-work balance. And then here's the ROI question. 86% of companies said they at least made their investment back.
Wow.
Virtually all companies and individuals who hire a coach are satisfied. And then there's more stuff you can find on the International Coach Federation website.
Mm-hmm.
The ROI from professional coaching is astonishing, and this is a long narrative about it, but let's just say it helps. It's going to make your organization more effective. Maybe you supervise some folks in your job. You might want to have them consider coaching. You might want to find a way to, pay for that in your budget.
Everyone needs a coach. It doesn't matter whether you're a basketball player, a tennis player, a gymnast, or a bridge player. My bridge coach, Sharon Osberg, says there are more pictures of the back of her head than anyone else's in the world. Sorry, Sharon. Here you go. We all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve.
Because I've received so many different kinds of advice, I don't know where to start. One that comes to mind is to have a coach. Our board member in 2002, John Doerr, said, "You need a coach." And I said, "Well, I don't need a coach. I'm an established CEO. Why would I need a coach? Is something wrong?" He said, No, you need a coach. Everybody needs a coach. So Bill Campbell became my coach and has served Google very well. Every famous athlete, every famous performer has somebody who's a coach, somebody who can watch what they're doing and say, is that what you really meant? Did you really do that? They can give them perspective. The one thing people are never good at is seeing themselves as others see them. A coach really, really helps.
There are different types of coaching. There's life coaching or personal coaching, which is kind of generic. The issues are many and varied. There's career coaching, people who are checked out specifically to help people in career coaching, relationship coaching, conflict coaching. That typically is somebody who's, like you may know about the Lombard Mennonite Peace Center, somebody who's been checked out from there. They do conflict coaching. Performance coaching, skills coaching, business coaching, executive coaching. I do a lot of that, working with leaders. And then team coaching, coming in and working with your staff or your team to help them better communicate, to better align their own work with each other. And organizational coaching. A lot of businesses have their own coach. There was I think there was a church, I think it was over in Fort Worth. They actually have a coach on staff who does nothing but coach. I'm coaching residents at Wilshire. I don't coach the staff because I'm a part of the system. I'm not totally objective and I have to work with these people, but the church I'm thinking about actually has a coach and that's all they do. It's kind of like having a therapist on staff or a counselor. Here's what coaching is, and here's the definition with my credentialing organization. Coaching is partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential, which is particularly important in today's uncertain and complex environment. Coaches honor the client as the expert in his or her life and work and believe every client is creative, resourceful, and whole. I want to repeat that last sentence. Coaches honor the client as the expert in his or her life and work and believe every client is creative, resourceful, and whole. That's the fundamental assumption of coaching. If you come to me for coaching, if someone comes to me for coaching, my assumption is that you know more about your life than anybody, especially me. And my job is to help you see that. Eric Schmidt referred to that. We have trouble seeing ourselves. We can't see ourselves as others see us. We can't even see all of ourselves. We can't see all of ourselves. We need someone that can ask us some questions and reframe things, and it helps the brain to resource better. Standing on this foundation, the coach's responsibility to help the client discover, clarify, and align with what they want to achieve. We want the client to engage self-discovery. We help the client create client-generated solutions and strategies. Why does that matter? Well, if we talk about something and I tell you what to do, the odds of you actually doing it are much less than if we have a conversation, I ask you some questions, and you decide what it is you need to do. Then you will own that, and you're much more likely to follow through on it because then it's your solution, it's not mine. Number one, your solution is going to be better than mine. I'm not you. I don't have your experience. I don't know everything about you. You're going to have the best solution and you're much more likely to follow through on it. Coaching helps clients find ways to be responsible and accountable. And coaching can dramatically improve a client's outlook on work and life while improving their leadership skills and unlocking their potential. I don't want to read all of this, but we're talking about positive change. That's a list of a lot of the things that can help. But the most important thing is an effective coach works with the client to help them live a better, richer life, regardless of their type of goals.
Mm.
Quick anecdote. I have people come to me for coaching who don't fully, and a lot of people don't understand what coaching is, and that's fine. Part of my job and my opportunity is to explain it to them. But for example, I had a former student that wanted me to coach them about whether they should go back to school and get a doctorate in choral music. Well, I know a little bit about that, but they didn't really want me to coach them. They wanted my advice. And so we had to explore that for a little while. And this has been a long time ago before I realized I couldn't coach somebody on that. That wasn't what they wanted. They wanted me to give some advice from my experience. And what that is being a mentor, not being a coach.
Hmm.
Here are some things that basically influence coaching. It's humanistic and transpersonal psychology, cognitive behavioral therapy, related theories, positive psychology, transactional analysis, adult development, theories of intelligence, and neuroscience. There's neuroscience behind what goes on in the brain when someone's being coached. Some other things there's a long list. I don't want to take forever with that. I'm glad to have a later conversation with any of you about this. What coaching is not, it is not therapy. If you approach me about coaching, I have an intake form, and a part of that intake form is you have to acknowledge that this is not therapy. Therapy is one of those professions that is licensed. My youngest daughter just transferred her license from the state of Washington to Texas a couple weeks ago. She is a licensed professional counselor. We call them LPCs. They have to pass an exam. They are licensed by the state. In her case, right now by the state of Texas. I'm not licensed by anybody as a coach. And it's important that my clients understand that what we are doing is not therapy. Therapy tends to look backward into the past, into those experiences that formed us and shaped us. Coaching looks forward. How do you tend to address this issue, this problem, this relationship? What are you going to do moving forward? I'm qualified to help you do that, to ask you some questions about that. I am not qualified, nor do I want to be qualified to be your therapist. And it's important for my clients to understand that it's not therapy. Therapy is wonderful. I've done therapy as a client, not as a therapist. It's important. I recommend people have therapists, but it's a different kind of process. Coaching is not mentoring. I gave the example just a minute ago. Mentoring is when someone who's already experienced what the client is facing offers their expertise and experience. In mentoring, one who has already walked that part of the journey looks back and gives advice to ones who follow. Coaches don't give advice. Coaches ask questions. Sometimes I'm coaching somebody about something and we've worked and I've asked them a lot of questions and the coaching process just isn't going to work. And so what I do ethically is I say, okay, I'm going to take my coach hat off for a minute and let's talk about this. And then I'll give them some advice. And if it's something that I feel qualified to give advice, I will. Otherwise, I'll just keep asking questions. But I don't go there at first. I don't even go there second or third. I go there on down the road once I've exhausted my ability as a coach. Coaching is not consulting. We all know what a consultant does. Consultant offers a specific specialized expertise or advice. Coaches create awareness. Core competencies of coaching, we hope coaches can offer deep listening, can ask powerful questions, can use artful language, can help a client toward action and accountability. Hopefully they have a healthy coaching relationship. And we have a coaching agreement, which means that we agree on what it is the client wants to accomplish. And we hope that we help the client create new awareness around whatever it is they want to work on. And sometimes coaches use direct communication. So here's what a coaching session can look like, and I'll just show you one model. There are a lot of models for coaches. But if we're going from the left to the right, we begin the conversation and we have an agreement or an outcome. And what is it that the client wants to work on in that session? And so the coach listens, confirms, and then they go to work. And the coach, if you look at the top of the grid, the coach listens. He asks questions. He acknowledges the client and their process and what they're working on. They discuss, they clarify, they brainstorm, they design. And at the bottom, we see that sometimes the coach challenges the client's beliefs and assumptions. They say, well, I'm not good at X. And the coach, sometimes I say, well, is that really true? And then that little question sometimes can reframe that. Well, if I really am good at something, well, maybe that opens up a set of options I didn't realize were there. And sometimes that can create some awareness. And then once the client has done their work the coach then says, well, what are you going to do about it? And what are you going to take away from this session? What are you committed to do about this before our next session or whenever? Sometimes I have clients that do interesting things. Sometimes a client will use a Post-it, or they'll put Post-its all over the place. I'm going to do X. And so they'll put some Post-its up to remind them. Sometimes they use their calendar. I had a client who was a minister in Nashville who did web design, and he created widgets that would pop up and remind him what he had promised that he was going to do to himself, or promised to himself he was going to do. Yeah. Here are some great things that happen from coaching. It affirms the basic giftedness and skill set of the one being coached. It focuses on the client, not on the coach. The term is free of assumptions of brokenness. You don't come to coaching because you're broken. You come to coaching sometimes maybe because you're stuck, or maybe because you just want to go deeper, or maybe a lot of times for example, it's a time issue. I'm just not getting everything done. I need to look at what I do and how I can analyze that and how I can be more efficient with my use of time. As I said earlier today, the coachee is much more likely to follow through on a plan of action that they have developed themselves. Ownership is just key. Convenience. Those conversations can happen online. When I first started coaching, best practice was considered over the phone. This was 10, 12, 13 years ago. Zoom has really helped the coaching profession, in my view. I know a lot of therapists that do almost all their therapy over Zoom. Coaching has an emphasis on action and accountability. What are you going to do? How are you going to hold yourself accountable to do it? A little bit more about the nature of the coaching profession. Here are some of the credentialing organizations. I'm credentialed by the International Coach Federation. There are others where you can be credentialed. This is a question that pops up sometimes. I do use coaching sometimes in pastoral care, not always, but sometimes it's appropriate. A lot of times it's a shepherd metaphor. We use that a lot in church. We talk about pastors. Some of you guys have pastor in your title. The basic principles of shepherding are two: communicating concern and acceptance and contributing to clarification and judgment. So questions, we'll tell some stories. I've got a few I can tell.
Yeah. I'll start off, and others in this live group can be, if you've got a question, just unmute your mic momentarily, or maybe if you want to put the question in the chat box, whatever your preference is. But without, Charlie, my question, without revealing anything confidential, of course, could you share a story that illustrates the kind of transformation you've seen through this process?
I think one of the most recent stories I have is I've got a minister on East Coach I'm coaching who is in a new position, been there less than a year, and it's a new position to the church that is a new position to him. And so he's got a lot of anxiety around all of that. He has just recently did his first performance review. And so leading up to that, it were things like, okay, how do I manage my time? How do I prioritize the different aspects of my job? How do I interact with staff? And I think the transformative piece of that was not just the outcomes, but having an outside source to bounce things off of and to be accountable. He wasn't accountable to me, but to be accountable to the questioning process. Um,
Mhm.
I coach that client about once a month, and I think it's been very transformative for him. I watched his confidence grow in a new setting, in a new kind of job. Um, it's been, I think, I would call that one successful. A lot of my clients, several through the years, I coached them for a season. And then, to be honest, I think you learn tools and you start asking yourself the same questions. So, in a way, when I do a really good job, I think sometimes I've coached myself out of a job. But then something comes along, and you need a series of sessions to talk about it. I have a coach, and I get coaching too. So,
Yeah. You probably have touched on this in some way, but I just want to see if you want to unpack it further. That you've described coaching when I've in preparing and exploring your work through your website. Um, you've described coaching as a two-person community. What does a coaching session with you look like in that with that mindset, that view of two-person community? Is it structured the way that you shared in that slide earlier, like that, or does it sometimes flow out of based on the client's needs? Does it is it more free flowing?
when I talk about two-person community, I'm talking about the value of community primarily. Building, I'm assuming most of us on the call are choir directors. And I know for me, in all my years of working with choirs, it was about building community. Um, a guy named Edmund Wilson, who recently died up in his 90s, was a science researcher. He studied insects. And he discovered that two species, he used the word species, that's not specifically true, but there were two species that could have gone extinct but didn't. And one were insects and the other were humans. And what they had in common was they learned to work together to survive. And I think that's where community comes in. And I can do a whole riff for an hour on the differences between community and tribalism, but community is a powerful word for me
Mhm.
because I think we're hardwired. Neuroscience shows that we're hardwired for community. And so I think coaching is just another form of community. In this
Mhm.
case, it's a two-person community. But what a coach does is provide safe space to talk about how they want to move forward and to explore their own giftedness, and to have someone help them reframe because we get stuck in framing patterns. I do too. We get stuck in assumptions about ourselves and about our situation. And to be honest, I do my best coaching with situations that I know absolutely nothing about because I ask better questions.
Mm.
If you want me to coach you about how to do a choir, I'm not going to be able to coach you. I can mentor you, I can give you advice, but I'm not going to ask very curious questions. But if I have a business exec, every once in a while I have a business exec that I coach. Um, and then because I don't know much about that world. And so I end up asking better questions because I'm more curious and I can help break through the client's assumptions, really, the less I know about it. So that two-person kind of community that's what I mean by that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Um, it- Melissa Fox here in our group today um, is submitted here in the chat box that she's looking at retirement in 4 years and she's already looking at goals and the process. And at what point, she asks, at what point would it be beneficial to bring in a coach to help the church and herself think through how to make a good transition and possible succession?
Okay, Melissa, what I'll say to that is, would you like for me to coach you about that and help you figure out what you think is the best time?
Yes.
Follow? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I could coach you about that if you wanted. And to be honest, I would rather coach you about that because I don't know your situation. I don't know your community. I don't know your church. I don't know you. So I would think that the answer to that question is very, what I would say, customizable. It's very situation and personally specific. Um, so I'm not trying to avoid the question, but I am demonstrating what coaches do, I hope.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You passed the test, Charlie. You didn't start offering advice.
I
I
didn't
mean,
start offering advice. Yeah.
yeah, we're seeing you in practice. You very good. Uh,
So is the best way to figure out like the price for budgeting and to go to our church for that, to get on your website and just contact you through there? Is that the best way to really do that?
Yeah, I think so. If you want to, contract with me, there are a lot of people that coach. I don't have a lot of capacity, but I do have some right now. And so I've got a standard rate, but I end up negotiating that. Um, I pay, business coaches, they make a lot of money. Um, I'm not doing this for the money. So, you know, everybody's got their standard rate, and then I usually negotiate it.
Good question. Thank you, Chip.
Charlie, at what point do you, when you're working with someone, after asking questions, do you realize, okay, they need a mentor or a therapy, but not coaching? How do you see that transitioning?
The therapy question, if they continue to go back into stories, they're trying to process, and we do a little bit of that in coaching, but if they're continually circling back to something, and if there's pathology involved, if they really can't break through patterns, then, I've only referred a couple people to therapy, but I have. The mentoring piece is kind of, I think it depends on, where they are. Like, let's say it's a young music minister, they're just getting started. Um, I coach them a little bit, and then, when the list of issues is like this long, and it's those things that, that we all know are going to take years for them to learn, then, I might suggest they find a mentor. Um, or actually, what I would do, I think most of us have a mentor. We just sometimes need to be encouraged to reach out to them. Um, you know, um, I can talk more specifically to this group because we're all choir directors, and um, I was praying about this morning and realized that one of the things I think about a lot when I was a choir director all the time was you think about what it means to stand in front of a group of people, a couple times a week and tell them what to do. I got a room full of people, and they're going to come into this room, and they're going to sit there or stand there and go wait for me to tell them what to do. That's a pretty awesome responsibility when you think about it. That takes a little bit of ego. It was hard for me when I was young. And so the idea that I'm going to go get help from somebody is tricky. Um, and yet, I learned when I was young, I thought I'm supposed to be able to do this. I've been to school, I've done these degrees, whatever. And I finally figured out when I talked to one of my mentors, I needed to call him more often. I just needed to do more of that. Um, so, I think that's a part of this. Maybe unique for our group. I think pastors probably have the same kind of thing. They stand up in a pulpit every Sunday and you know declare God's word. It takes a little bit of ego to do that, and so I think we have to be careful around that. Just to be honest.
Mhm. Yeah. Anyone else? Charlie, what do you hope people walk away with after a first session with you, that initial session, getting things started in the process?
I what I hope more than anything else that they're piqued, they're interested. We've in a sense plowed the ground for them to continue and to plant some seeds. A person, it takes several sessions before a person really understands how the process works. My best clients are the ones who have continued for a time. And the trick is that people want a quick fix. Um, they want to come in, they want to spend 1 or 2 sessions, they solve their problem, they want to get on with life. They want
Mhm.
everything to be perfect again. We live in a culture that's about, immediate satisfaction. And so what I want them to be curious enough to sustain. I usually suggest a client come for 6 sessions. I typically do the first one for free and then in charge for 5 and do 6. And by that point, they know what they're about. And for me, it didn't, I don't do this for the money. For me, uh, a successful coaching client is somebody who takes it seriously and is making progress. And if they're not making progress, they're gonna fade away. They're gonna go, and that's okay. What I've learned, 2 or 3 things I've learned through the years. Um, I want people to approach me for coaching, and I don't approach them. Um, when I was first getting my credential, I needed to get 100 hours of coaching. And so basically, I was borrowing, and stealing people to coach them so I could get the hours. And some of those went really, really well. And some of those, it was just, they weren't into it. It wasn't that they had a bad attitude. It just wasn't theirs. Not everybody can be coached. But I've got clients now that are continuing that I've coached for a long, long time. Might be just once a month. They check in, they tell me what's going on, they talk about what they want to, coach about. What I do now, what I'm doing with my clients now is I send them about 3 questions I want them to answer and send in to me before the session. And that gives them some focus. They've had to think about what they want to coach about. And then the second thing I give them, that a lot of my clients are using is a guideline, some guidelines for journaling. My clients are learning that journaling is helpful to them. And some of you guys may already journal. But years and years ago, one of my colleagues said that clear writing makes for clear thinking. And so the journaling piece has been helping my clients. But um, when I'm coaching somebody, and this is why I love Zoom, because I couldn't do this over the phone. When you've asked the coaching client a question and their eyes freeze, and you can almost see the wheels turning, and something new is happening in that brain, that's all the pay I want.
Mm.
Yeah.
If someone here listening later, if someone is curious but they're hesitant to try coaching, what would you say to them? What 1 or 2 things?
Try it. Come in to check my website out or check somebody else's website. I'm not here as a commercial. You guys ask me, but try 1 session and see how it feels. I don't know if most coaches, I know several coaches that the first session's free. Come dip your toe in, see if something happens.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't, do something else. I think we all need a companion on the journey. Pastors in particular, because they're the leader at the top of a system, they can get really lonely. Um, I'm really big on pastors having a coach or a spiritual director or a therapist, but coaching, I love coaching. So there's so much brain science behind it. But I think other ministers need that too. You need somebody outside the system that provides you safe space where you can come and talk. And coaching is such a safe thing because I'm just going to ask you questions.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what to do. Um, and I'm going to be along for the ride.
Yeah. Thanks,
I'm going to
Charlie.
pop in here and just say that I have a spiritual director, which is a lot like coaching, I think, because she asks me questions. And I was thinking as you were talking, Charlie, I was a lifelong choral music teacher. And so one of the neatest things that I ever got out of teaching was the day in, day out and seeing those light bulb moments when, something clicked. And so I think that must be how my spiritual director feels when something clicks with me. And because she's such a great listener, and I've told her that. I said, you listen to what I say, and then you give me back what you hear, and I hear it differently. I can think about it, and I would never get to that point. So I appreciate her feedback. And yeah, there's a little bit of accountability. I see her once a month, and so I'm always thinking, I wonder what, where am I? Where am I on my journey? So I can say a hearty amen to having that feedback.
There's a massive overlap between coaching and spiritual direction. And to be honest, I'm probably committing spiritual direction often when I coach. So one of my favorite coaching questions is once a person's worked on something for a while, and I say, "Where do you find God in this?" Which is a spiritual direction question actually. So um, I think a lot of what goes on in the brain is the same.
Charlie, thank you. Um, I've seen a comment here from Doug, our executive director. Agree with Charlie's sense that ministers are lonely. And our Harmony Project research, Polyphony's Harmony Project research, engaging 100 musicians highlights that a lot of church musicians feel lonely and isolated.
Yeah. And it's only gotten worse since the pandemic and even still going on now.
Mm-hmm. 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 Charlie, thank you. I put in the group chat, those that were here for the live session, the website, Charlie's website to reach him. And we'll make sure it's also available in the description on when we get this uploaded to YouTube in the description section for those that are watching this later. I've asked Charlie to conclude our time with the blessing or benediction today before we depart from this Zoom time.
I'll just offer a prayer this morning. God, I pray for the folks on this call. I pray you'd bless their work, bless their hearts, bless their families, bless their churches. May the kingdom of God be present always in what they do. In Jesus' name I pray.
Group, it's good to have all of y'all in your engagement today. Good questions and feedback. Thank you. This is a great time.